got myself here, David as well. Got Reed, who is my director of sales, that supports our sales team. Risks of an unprotected network. What is the average cost of business downtime? I think, David, you may be able to speak a little bit into this subject. Downtime can vary across retailers, but I know there's averages. But bottom line is, downtime means loss of revenue.
Yeah, downtime definitely means a lot of revenue, and the costs vary from market to market, industry to industry, right? So a classic pop-up retailer may not experience the same level of cost to them as a larger box store for their downtime. It really depends on what portions of their business require that network connectivity to provide their day-to-day operations, right? As everything's going online today, almost everything's connected from our point of sales to our even our phone systems, right? So you could be losing sales from having those phone systems being down too. So there's a
Absolutely.
lot of potentials for that.
Yeah, I mean, everything is cloud-based these days. You've got internet-based phone systems, point of sale, connection to ERP type systems, inventory reports. Everything is connected. So the average cost of business downtime can vary so much, but an hour can be thousands uh, of dollars in downtime. And what our job here at RCN, with partnership from you guys at Cradlepoint, is to help mitigate that at all costs, create that five nines of uptime of network connectivity, and that's what we do on a daily basis. So going back to the value of a secured connection, David, how do you think that affects today's environment in retail in the sense of having a connection that's secure?
Well, I mean, having a connection that's secure, you don't want people to be able to eavesdrop in your communications, right? That's definitely top of mind for a lot of organizations today. But those comes in a lot of different ways. I know there's a lot of talk that cellular is in the air, so it can always be looked upon, or it can be someone can hijack the signal and that kind of stuff, and it's really doesn't work that way, right?
Mhm.
So when it comes to cellular, you have a pretty secure connection from device to tower. And then from that, everything's effectively on a private network through where your endpoint's reaching out to, through those carrier networks.
Yeah.
So overall, your security is pretty good. But security in a different manner is that peace of mind that you're always going to have a connection available if something were to happen to your primary connection, right? So that keeps the security that your business will still remain functional and remain operational, even though my fiber connection or my cable connection might end up going down. My other source of broadband connectivity.
Absolutely. Yeah, you nailed it, David. This just goes back to everything that we've thought was reliable before, which still is reliable, like fiber, like our copper POTS lines, and then coax. Uh, the first thing that anybody does is they're going to grab their cell phone and see if they can make a call that way. And what Cradlepoint does and what RCN helps customers to do is just take advantage of that reliability with a stable network connection. So something that we pride ourselves on offering customers to be able to have that last line of defense.
Absolutely.
Going to move on here to the next item. So, how many mission critical functions would be lost without a network in retail stores? We briefly touched on that earlier with just VoIP systems and point of sale. But Reed, do you want to kind of dive into some solutions that could be lost that without an internet connection?
Yeah, Ryan, absolutely. It's funny. One of your peers and I were on a call with a pretty large multi-location nationwide retailer yesterday. They've got about 500 locations in one of their brands and another 260 or so in another brand. So it's fairly large, sizable organization and enterprise, right? And as their CIO was taking us through their retail layout and their roadmap and their plans and what's relying on the network today, he was talking about everything from at baseline, their internet connectivity, right? Takes their POS down. They can't do transactions. Imagine how disastrous that is at a surge time, like right at lunch or right at dinner. for them. It's potentially hundreds, thousands of dollars of lost revenue and bottom line profit for them that keeps the lights on every day. But not only that, they could lose monitoring capabilities on, say, refrigeration, right? In this use case, keeping their food at an optimal temperature, which is highly regulated by the health department, by the FDA. They can lose connectivity if they're a true retail environment. They could lose connectivity on their customer journey tracking, right? There's a lot of agencies using Bluetooth out there to track where their customers are going, where they're spending the most time throughout their stores. So maybe they can get more custom coupons sent out to their mobile phones. Maybe they can get emails with spend a lot of time in the towels section. Maybe they're going to get a promo on towels the next day, right? They're going to end up right back there. It's where they spend all their time. But you've got other things, right? Wi-Fi networks. If they've got any applications out there, from a kiosk to let's say employees are on the floor doing inventory with tablets, they're in the back doing inventory stocking with tablets, those go down. They lose that efficiency and productivity with their employees as well. So at your most foundational level, it's POS, right? In a retail environment, you can't transact, you can't make money. What people don't realize though is that for those customers moving throughout the store, they've got lost opportunity to push them some content, maybe if they're doing Bluetooth tracking, and get a conversion out of that customer coming out of the store. They lose time productivity with staff in the back doing inventory, maybe management being able to answer some emails from HR or corporate, whatever that is. But across the board, I mean, retail customers are so visionary nowadays in where they want to optimize their customer experience. And almost always that's tied to technology. And that technology is 99.9% tied to connectivity. So if retail is going to be able to evolve and remain relevant, that's why connectivity is key. It really is the foundation. Retailers that aren't thinking about a proactive backup plan today really need to start considering it if they're going to continue to survive in the upcoming years as we continue to innovate.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Reed. It's one of those things that point of sale and, transacting is the lifeblood of a retail provider. But all those ancillary systems that you mentioned, like their Wi-Fi for inventory tracking for tablets, or um, you know tracking foot traffic, all that is just as important as sometimes the regular point of sale, just because they want to take advantage of the people that have walked through their doors. A lot of retailers are fighting for their brick and mortar stores, as a lot of things go to online. So that time is very valuable. So I know retailers want to take as much advantage of that as possible. But thank you, Reed. So moving on briefly here to cellular dependability. I mentioned the five nines of dependability and network uptime that we mentioned earlier. Just 99.99% of network uptime is what we shoot for and what can be achieved with the cellular solution. So, David, can you just explain to us, is a cellular network as reliable as, let's just say a primary Wi-Fi network that we're more used to?
I mean, in a lot of cases, a cellular network can be more reliable than a customary Wi-Fi network, right? With your Wi-Fi networks, I mean, everyone's got hotspots everywhere, right? I mean, most people carry one in their pocket and don't even realize it's turned on, broadcasting on your 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz, right? Even if
Hmm.
it's not connected, it's reaching out and talking to things out there. But then with your retailers and other big box stores, they've got access points throughout their entire environment also, and some of that stuff can get saturated to the point that it's virtually unusable, right? So with cellular, you have a much larger breadth of space to use in the frequency spectrum, from anywhere from 600 megahertz up to now the 3.8 gigahertz, all the way up into the millimeter wave frequencies with some of the higher 5G technologies that are out there. There's a lot more bandwidth available in that frequency range, to provide that coverage. But as far as reliability goes, carriers are constantly rolling out more towers. They're rolling out more capabilities and functionality at their towers that they currently have to try and extend their reach and make people more connectable, than they have been in the past. So as much as you know we complain about all the problems we have with our cell phones and not getting the connectivity that we need, it really comes down to, do you have a connection? Can you make a phone call, right? It's not necessarily I need to see this 4K video right now on my cell phone service necessarily, um, but how it relates to Wi-Fi and its dependability and reliability there is, the Wi-Fi will get more congested as more people connect. The cell networks tend to get more congested the more people pull data from. So it's a little bit different. You can have many more people connected, but depending on their usage, it might not be as impactful as a Wi-Fi network would be.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that reliability and Wi-Fi largely is on the purchaser of the equipment on the reliability, and that takes a large investment to have something that's high quality. Whereas on the cellular side of things, the carriers have made that investment for us. We just have to have the solution to take advantage of that. So I think
And
that's something strong to think of there.
Ryan, what I want to jump in here with, and maybe I'm getting ahead of ourselves, maybe it's on the next slide. I really want to talk about how cellular networks are often more reliable than your traditional landline ISP networks, right? Whether that's a broadband circuit or a copper POTS line or even a fiber circuit these days, right? So, personally, in the what I was just telling somebody earlier today, I got a cell phone for the first time in 2006. It's when I was in the seventh grade. From that time to now, as a 28-year-old man, so about 20, pretty good time investment. Don't want to age myself here, but I've only had this thing go out one time to my knowledge, where the tower went down. It was the most bizarre thing. I was talking to my mom driving home from work one day, and it just cut out, and it connected the next morning, and I had a lot of missed calls from people that thought I was dead all of a sudden. But the story that I want our attendees to hear, right, is that that's one time in 16 years of owning a cellular device, right? And I am on Verizon, but one time in 16 years, largely being in the same location those 16 years here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And so the point I'm getting across is cellular is highly reliable. It's if it goes down, typically you're having a much bigger issue out there in your environment and area than not having cellular communications. Whereas those wire lines are very finicky, right? You can get impacted by a lot of rain. You can get impacted by construction, right? Somebody comes through, local utility company doing repair on pipes. They cut right through a conduit or dig right through a conduit. Usually in a lot of, let's take for our retail customers, they are located in strip mall complexes. And maybe all of their ISPs are funneling through one primary conduit into the main building, right? They cut it, they all go down. So there's a lot of things that can happen to that traditional ISP that simply aren't the case with cellular. You think about your cellular network, let's take the mall out in West Knoxville, right? There's probably, if I had to think about it, a surplus of at least 10, probably up to 20 cellular towers and microcells all around. So if even one of them was to go down, there's so much backup contingency there. And even in a power failure, most large towers have generators to keep them online.
Yeah.
So it truly is. I wanted to make that a clear talking point, right? Cellular is so much more reliable, inherently more reliable, has inherently less fail points than traditional landline ISPs. And that's why it's so vital for retail organizations that, as you said, Ryan, their lifeblood is transacting with their customer, right? It's vital for them to have a backup that is cellular, that is ultra reliable, but also maybe at one point, especially with 5G on the rise, to some of David's point, taking advantage of some of those higher megahertz that can push more throughput, right? 3,800 megahertz, 6,000 megahertz, moving to more primary as well. So you never have to experience an outage again. Or if you do, maybe you're like me, you're going to incur one time every 16 years, right?
Yeah.
Just something
And
to think.
yeah, to go on and expand on that a little bit, Reed. If you do have a fiber cut, say there's the fiber cut in your area, it drops fiber for that entire retail or that entire strip mall, right?
Mhm.
Well, your cell phone service will most likely still be operational. Yeah, they still rely on your traditional fiber backhaul, through their carrier networks and everything. But to your point, we have so many cell towers around that if something were to happen and a cell tower were to have a fiber cut from construction or so, you're going to have another cell tower within range to give you some kind of service, right? It may
Yeah.
not be the same level of service you're used to, but you're still going to have that service versus that strip mall that's completely out until the carrier can come out and get that repaired. I mean,
Absolutely.
just where I am alone in Delaware, I've got 3 towers in less than half a mile, of my location. So if one of them were to go down, I've still got backups, you know, for my connectivity. So the
Yep.
likelihood of me being full out is far less than having a traditional broadband service.
Yeah, and I'm thinking back to any major news breaks of a certain wireline carrier going out. You never hear about those because it happens on a daily basis. Whereas on the opposite end of the spectrum, if T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T has a wireless outage, it makes national news because that's a big deal. And you only see those because they happen extremely rarely. I think I've seen that happen, maybe twice in the last 5 years, and usually they're corrected pretty quickly. So yeah, thank you guys so much for your thoughts. We can move on to the next point here, which you know, do I have to activate my failover device once an outage occurs? And that's just the beauty of Cradlepoint. It's a smart device that essentially is set it and forget it. Makes it very easy, and almost as important as having an active connection when an outage occurs is having it deactivate itself when the connection comes back. These cellular providers, they're not giving away this service for free. They do charge for their cellular data. So having a device that knows when to come back to the main connection is really important. So it is a seamless transition from primary to your backup being cellular, and then back to the primary once that is a good connection. Um, how fast is something like that, David? Is that something that is you know has you lose a call, or tell us about that?
Yeah, so with our failover solutions that we're going to discuss here coming up, the failovers, it's pretty seamless, right? So the device itself terminates that broadband connection, but also serves as that cellular connectivity point. And it really depends on configuration. You can have it set in a full standby state where it's just kind of sitting there, knows that service is out there, but it's not connected to anything. Or you can have a fully available service connection where it's maintains its connection to the tower, sending heartbeats periodically, but not passing any regular data. And immediately upon failure of that broadband, it immediately picks up with that active. So we're talking 5 to 10 seconds maybe on a standby situation and near immediate on an active available situation. And the same thing is true on failover, when you fail back. So when you fail back, we have capabilities built in that enable the device to test to make sure that broadband connection is stable over a set period of time or a set amount of data usage before it will fail back, because you don't want to fail back to just have to fail over again, right? You want to make sure that connection remains stable. But to your question, Ryan, it's possible you could drop that VoIP call, but you could literally hang that phone up and pick it right back up and make that call
Sure.
again. It's not one of those things where the phone's going to have to fully re-register and do all this other funky stuff. The connection's still going to be there. It just could drop potentially that call.
Sure. Just like you're when you're driving down the interstate and you're on the phone with somebody, you drop a call, you pick it up, you call them right back. Totally makes sense.
Yeah, one thing I want to add, Ryan, is that we were talking, that same retailer that one of your peers and I, Cameron and I, were talking to yesterday. They're talking about integrating a VR experience. They're talking about
Oh
integrating
wow.
AR experience into their whole retail segment. Things that require a lot of more data heavy bandwidth. right? Higher bandwidth requirements. And so, whereas today they've got a pretty low bandwidth requirement for all their mission critical ops in their store, they're talking about some of these emerging and evolving technologies to optimize that consumer experience that are going to be real data hogs. And because of that, what people, the extrapolation of failover is using it as a concurrent, right? Or supplementary bandwidth. So if they get, say your customer gets a SD-WAN appliance and it's able to concurrently use both WAN sources in conjunction with their local network equipment there, then you could have your fiber coming in at 50 meg symmetrical, right? Which is pretty great throughput for a retail environment today. But then you could get a 5G failover device or 4G failover device, Cat 18, let's go with that, that's getting another 50 megs down. On 5G, you could be getting something crazy on a mid band like 200 megs down. And all of a sudden, you're using them both at one time, right? You're blending them into a true HOV lane, giving that supplementary burst bandwidth to some of those data hog applications in your store, but also those customers looking to aggregate with both traditional ISP and 4G or 5G. And they really need to start looking at that as kind of that foundational piece, right?
Yeah.
If I want to expand my customer experience, if I want to add these technologies, if I want to continue to advance our vision in technology, 5-10 year strategic plan, it's absolutely vital that they start looking at, again, A, failover at the very least, but B, currently use the best of the best ISP in their area and the best of the best fixed wireless via something like a Cradlepoint 1850 or a W2005 or even 5G.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm thinking back to, just all of these industry leaders of retail, the CIOs, director of infrastructure, they're focusing not only on keeping their networks stable and secure, but they're also focusing on the customer experience as well. When a customer walks in the store, do they think that it is a pleasant experience? Do they want the experience to show the customer that they're making investments into technology? I think, Reed, you may remember a discussion we had with one of our national retail customers a few weeks ago. They're heavily investing into things like digital signage um, and foot traffic monitors to really dial in on how these customers want to have their experience. I'm thinking about a large food retailer, maybe it has some golden arches in front of it. All their menu boards are digital now, so they can update them on the fly. And if they lose that connection, that is a potential loss that they need to make an update. So it's just so much more vital as we move forward into technology. And I think as 4G matures even more, we're going to see a lot of great things continue to come out of that. And at the same time, 5G, I think that's going to be just an absolute game changer in so many ways. I mean, if we think back years ago when 4G was first emerging, and what would it be like if we didn't have it? Would we have these convenient services without 4G, like Uber or DoorDash? All these things that we've used over the last couple of years, those wouldn't be a thing without a 4G connection.
Yeah, I got one more thing, and then we can move on. I know we're beating a dead horse here on this. But, that same customer you
Important.
mentioned met with down in Atlanta, really they've got this new concept store. It's high tech. They want really to attract the Gen Z consumer to their
Yeah.
stores big way, right? Everybody's trying to figure out Gen Z right now. What entices them because they're our next consumer wave. And they said, it's not verbatim, but they said if we are going to continue attracting the next generation customer, we must evolve using the next generation technology. And to do that, we have to start with connectivity. And that's where, again, at the very minimum, failover comes in to protect that next generation experience, but also to augment what's already there with that wireline to continue pushing the needle forward with that next generation experience. So we can move on now, though.
No, thanks, Reed. So let's get into some solutions. We've laid out all these problems and why it's important to have at least a cellular back as a backup solution. So let's get into some of these ways that RCN and Cradlepoint can help keep your businesses connected. First on the list here is the E300. This is a workhorse of a device. I would say is the perfect fit for retail environments. This is the go-to that I have for every customer that I speak with when it comes to a small business or retail environment. So, David, do you want to kind of take the charge on just why this is such a fantastic device for these applications?
Yeah, so I mean, the E300, it kind of fits right in the middle of the Cradlepoint portfolio, right? I mean, it's definitely a workhorse, like you mentioned. All of our E series devices are just they're top notch. They're a new breed of technology that we released, recently. And so a couple ways that the E300 is well positioned for retail, especially retail, like you had mentioned, is because I mean it's predominantly a 4G device. Sure, that's what's embedded in it. We've got a Cat 7 radio, we've got a Cat 18. As Reed mentioned, with your Cat 18, you're looking at upwards of 1 gigabit up to 1.2 gigabits of theoretical download speed. So you could traditionally see, upwards of, Reed mentioned 50 megabits on the cellular. We've seen, 150, 200 megabits on cellular connections with these devices, fully capable. They've got an integrated WAN port, so you can terminate that broadband connection and have both of them built in, so that if you have that failover use case, Wi-Fi is built into it if you need that immediate hotspot directly from the device there. But you don't lose a lot in the way of capabilities when you're turning on security features or advanced routing features and VPN tunneling. So it really is a great product for you. It supports a decent number of users for retail locations. It's got a port on it for Bluetooth beaconing. So if you happen to do that people counting or that footfall traffic, or any of that user monitoring kind of applications, those are in there. Another thing with our E series, it applies for this one and later, they provide the capabilities of container support on them. So if you have applications that you might want to run directly at the edge of your store, you're able to run some of that lightweight compute without having to ship it out and just ship the results out. So say you're tabulating, all your data for all your footfall traffic and all that in the store. Well, you can upload it to a dashboard, but you have that compute engine in there to be able to calculate, a lot of your figures and values before uploading it. So it's a quick upload. It just shows the results data, and you're ready to go.
Wow, that's something I didn't even realize. Thanks, David.
Absolutely.
One thing I'll chime in with the E series that I love, and I believe the next slide is over the E3000. So we're going to see that's the next level of this E300 device. But what I love about it and what you said, David, is that you can integrate that primary WAN source, right, that broadband connection into this, have that integrated cellular modem, and have really, what I like to call rack consolidation. There are some visionary IT directors in the retail space and some other industry verticals out there that are saying, I've got a firewall and I've got a switch and I've got this and I've got that, and it's all sitting in my rack today. I've got 3 appliances and 2 of them have licenses on them that we've got to keep up with out of our enterprise licensing budget year over year. What if I were to consolidate all of those down to one box? Because the E300 not only acts as an edge firewall, it also has some rather sophisticated routing protocol and security protocol. It also has several LAN WAN switchable ports, so it can act as that network switch. You can take your rack down to 4 or 5 devices and have one, plus your battery backup in case the power goes out, right? So that's what I really love about these devices, is that for visionary shops that are looking to consolidate costs and get the most mileage out of one box, this E series, it look no further. I mean, it truly is remarkable what we can do in a retail
Yeah,
environment.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and before we move on, I don't want to miss out on that 5G ready capabilities of
Yep.
them, right? So with the E300, it is 5G ready. It's not capable of actually running a 5G modem built into it, but you can extend it with one of those adapters, Reed, that you had mentioned earlier, the 1850 or the 2005. So you can extend that via Ethernet rather than running antennas and causing loss from trying to get that signal acquisition. You can run it by Ethernet to where that signal is and pull it into the box directly with no loss via an Ethernet cable, to
Mhm.
provide that additional WAN source or LTE source of connectivity for you.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much, David. Yeah, this
Absolutely.
is such a great solution. Just talking about solutions for failover, and both these devices, the E300 and now moving to the E3000. I think one of the things that makes them so powerful is also that manageability through NetCloud. So, David, if you want to take the lead on the E3000 and what makes it a great fit, not only for these retail environments, but for some more large scale stores as well, getting into some of the higher requirements needed.
Yeah. Yeah. So the E3000, it's really good for your larger retail locations, your small, medium, overall branch locations, right? It's got a few more switch ports than the E300 does built into it, but to Reed's point, they're all LAN WAN switchable. So theoretically, with the E3000, you could have 9 different WAN ports on this device to be able to terminate all those connections. If you want to have all those broadband connections out there, you could terminate theoretically up to 9 of those on this device and still provide a LAN network behind it. But to that point, so the E3000 comes in 2 flavors also. It comes in its own Cat 18, so that 1.2 gigabits of download throughput, but it also comes with an embedded 5G variant as well. So with that embedded 5G, you're able to harness that full spectrum of the sub 6 gigahertz 5G. So from 600, 700 megahertz up to that 6 gigahertz range in that 5G. AT&T and T and Verizon have all recently turned on or flipped the switch on their C-band spectrum, right, that they purchased through the FAA auctions a little over a year ago. So they've able to turn that on. Well, that gives us a whole new area of upper level frequency range for the sub 6 5 gigahertz. So we're talking 3.8 gigahertz, where you're going to be capable of getting those 250 300 megabits down on that single cellular connection. But again, just extends on the capabilities of the 300. It adds some more horsepower into it. There's some additional memory. So those container applications that I mentioned before, it can house a bit more and do a bit more on that edge compute side of the house. It can also support that Bluetooth module. Um, and both of these devices can be dual cellular as well. So if you really need that, if you're really looking to cut the cord and go all cellular, or you want to have a tertiary connection just in case carrier A goes down and have a carrier B backup. You have those capabilities of adding that triple layer of failover protection with these E-series devices.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think you nailed it with the flipping of the switch from Verizon and AT&T of that C-band spectrum. To me, I see that as just a green pasture of possibilities. There's a lot of great things I think we're going to see in the next coming weeks and months from these carriers. Personally, I know here at RCN's HQ, we have a W2005 external 5G modem on the roof of our building. And I think if we ran a speed test right now, we would get 250 megs of download speed plus. I'm just pulling it right out of the air, which, I've been so amazed, and I'm preaching this to customers, is this is something that we didn't know was a reality, and we kept thinking of it as, and now it's here. This is something that we can get today with today's technology. And it's just amazing. This is something that is rivaling traditional coax broadband and really opening not only our eyes, but the customer's eyes to the possibility of having this as a fixed, primary, extremely stable connection. It's been something we've been talking about for years, and it's finally here. It's really exciting. So we're going to wrap up here. I think that this has been a great discussion about how important a backup connection is for our retail customers. Um, we have webinars all the time here at RCN. We want to talk to you about 5G, why it's so exciting. We want to talk to you about these type of solutions. So we have a lot of other things on our website in collaboration with Cradlepoint, like these webinars, RCN news and articles, and our social feeds. Like I said, we collaborate with David and his team on things like this all the time. So really, really looking forward at what we can do this year with it being so early in 2022. So really, just kind of recapping here as far as RCN's capabilities. Uh, in our partnership with Cradlepoint, we are a 5G and LTE enablement specialist. We specialize in 5G and LTE network solutions that enable our customers to connect better, and we want to provide the right solution every time. We don't want to just sell a box. We want to partner with our customers to provide a solution. There's a lot of easy buttons out there, and we want to make sure that it's not only easy, but we want to make sure it's the right solution every time. So thank you guys so much for joining us. As far as getting that one-on-one expert consultation with us, you can reach out to Reed, myself, and I'm sure David can assist as well. Right here is our phone number for our office, ending in 0350. Call us. Let's have a discussion at why you need to have a reliable connection and how it can benefit your business. These solutions will pay for themselves in a matter of any kind of a disaster, or whenever you least expect it, they will come in handy. What happens if my failover fails? Does this device include any kind of built-in redundancy? That is a fantastic question. There are we want to make sure that everything is as bulletproof as possible. But as far as the redundancy in the solutions themselves, David, do you want to kind of tackle that on how do we make sure our failover is fail proof?
Yeah. So I mentioned one of the ways that you can do that earlier by having that dual modem within the E-series devices, right? So that'll have your tertiary connection, so that if your primary failover does fail or doesn't happen to connect for whatever reason, you have that backup modem. But also, each of the cellular modems that are built into our devices or the adapters that we have, they're all dual SIM capable. So you're able to load them with multiple SIMs and for different carriers. So if one of the carriers happens to be down or not functional, you're able to fill in that other SIM card to test that other carrier, almost like a tertiary connection without actually having that double redundant modem within the device. On top of that, I mean, the only other thing you really want to have a battery backup, right? So
Sure.
Reed had mentioned we have E series that have battery backup capabilities that can provide you up to 8 hours of connectivity on battery if you happen to lose power. Most of your broadband services don't. Some of the fiber services do, but most broadband services don't come with those. So those are a couple different ways to that we have built-in redundancy for those failover solutions from failing themselves.
Yeah, that's a great point. And David, I think one fantastic aspect of Cradlepoint that makes it such a powerful solution is just being able to have that visibility from the cloud, because we're not going to be at these physical locations all the time. We need to know when those outages occur, what issues the employees at that location may be facing. And through the power of NetCloud, we're able to get alerts set up. We can have the device tell us when there's an outage. We can have the device even tell us when there's a reconnection. I think it's just a fantastic solution to be able to really set it and forget it, but still have that peace of mind that the device is going to be a very stable and reliable solution.
Yeah, and on top of that, Ryan, the NetCloud Manager gives you the visibility to see that that backup is available and ready, right? It's one of those things where half the time we don't know that our backup isn't working until we really need it and it's not there, right? A lot of that comes in when you're talking multi VPN, right? Same kind of thing. But when you have the capability to see, okay, well, this service is available and it is ready for me, and that peace of mind that my failover is there, that definitely helps, especially with the IT leaders that are running at these retail locations and small and medium businesses, to know that they'll have connectivity when they need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, David. Another question I have here is, can I load my device with data from more than one carrier? I think, David, you touched on that a bit, but Reed, do you want to kind of explain to our guests, how RCN and Cradlepoint, how are we have an established relationship with these various carriers to make sure that customers are covered based on what their existing relationship with that carrier may be.
So Ryan, let me make sure I understand your question. Are you talking about what we can do in terms of RCN providing carrier options, data
I
options?
think it's just explaining the relationship and partnership that we have with these carriers.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, for a customer that's engaging RCN for our expertise, they're engaging Cradlepoint, and RCN is one of Cradlepoint's national elite partners. We make sure to partner with all the major carriers out there in the United States, from T-Mobile to AT&T to Verizon, even US Cellular. And so let's say the customer is coming to us direct and they really say, hey, we need your help locating the best carrier for us in the area. We can leverage our industry contacts to hook them up with any of the major players out there. And along with some of David's talking points, and Ryan, what you said, of course, if you really want to be secure, you can always get a solution like the E3000, which can be dual modem, dual SIM, have a backup redundant carrier for that, if your Verizon primary link ever goes down. Another thing that we can do, actually, RCN has a sister company named Artec, and we can actually provide data plans on all four of the major carriers as well. So a benefit of going on Artec's data platform is that we can actually pool across carriers. And for a lot of our retail organizations that have locations across the nation, we've deployed not only Cradlepoint's failover solutions like the L950, but we've also put in a primary SIM card according to the strongest carrier available in the area, and then a passive or inactive secondary SIM card into that device based on the second place carrier. So there's a lot of different options, whether that's partnering direct with a carrier or going through our sister company, Artec. We can get you not only a reliable data source, but also can provide that redundancy to your redundancy, right, with that secondary carrier source if need be.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we've got another question in the chat here. David, you may be able to answer this one, but do you ever consider smart SIM technology provided like the one provided by Helix Wireless? I know on the RCN side, we do have partnerships with companies that do utilize smart SIM use cases. I know that Reed mentioned our sister company, Artec. We do have a solution there that is able to provide that smart SIM multi-carrier flavor for those customers to make it pretty easy. But David, what's been your experience in the industry with solutions like that?
So the smart sim technologies, it's starting to become a lot bigger. The ecosystem's really growing in that. I know a lot in EMEA relies on eSIMs to provide the smart sims. So you don't have a physical sim; it's just on a chip. It just gets flashed, and it has the carrier capabilities built into it. So, yeah, the devices we have, they're multi-carrier devices, right? We really don't sell any devices. There's only one model device we sell that's carrier dependent, and that's our little baby, the IBR 200. Every other device, including the E series, like you've seen today, and most of our failover portfolio, they're all capable of multi-carrier. So those smart SIMs that can be loaded with double, triple, quadruple carriers built in, for different connectivity means and purposes, definitely doable within the devices.
Perfect. Thank you, David. I hope that answered that question. These devices are extremely versatile. I'm remembering back in the day when I first got into selling Cradlepoint devices, and we had to flash the firmware over, and it always required a ticket from our help desk to make sure that that went smoothly and the APN was configured correctly. So glad that those days are over with, and the firmware is just automatically goes in, and everything is pretty much smooth sailing from there. And again, the cloud manageability through NetCloud makes that a very seamless transition and very reliable solution to do from really anywhere, as long as you have a connection. Let's see. I think we've got another question here. We can wrap up here shortly. What kind of pricing do we offer for these failover devices? And do they always have to be an upfront price, or can it be a monthly expenditure? It's a great question. I can tackle that. You know, RCN, we have such a great relationship with Cradlepoint, and along with our sister company Artec, that we have the versatility of being able to fit a solution based on the customer's budget. I said it before, we don't want to sell a box. We want to partner with our customers to sell a solution. And that's what these partnerships really allow us to do. We can provide the hardware at an outright cost, bundling in the licensing for the NetCloud Essentials and NetCloud Advanced services. But we can also add in those additional data services, partner with our company Artec, or along with our partner carriers like Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T. And lastly, we do have the great option of offering everything as a service, a device as a service program or subscription. Customers don't have to spend a great chunk of money up front. We can offer an all-in-one solution that really gives customers the look, taste, and feel of a second connection. You know, you're going to be paying monthly to Comcast or to these other big carriers for a connection. We make it very simple to have that same look, taste, and feel, like I said, mimicked in this solution, but having that wireless touch to it. So I think it's a fantastic solution for any budget, and really helping our customers get the solutions that they need in their hands at an affordable rate. Reed, anything else to add to that?
No, I think that was well said, Ryan.
Perfect. Well, we got some great questions. Thank you so much for the feedback here. Really have loved chatting with the guys here about this vital solution that RCN partnered with Cradlepoint is able to do today.